So in today's class, we'll start with disassemblers or decompilers. So usually compilers are nothing but which are used for translating an assembly language to a machine level language, that is assemblers. Compilers are used for translating higher level language to the machine level language. Why means any set of language, either it can be an assembly language or a higher level language, it will be transferred into a machine level language because the machine will be understanding it in terms of opcodes better than the mnemonics and the instructions, right? So this decompiler is just opposite, it performs the opposite operation of the compiler, means the machine codes will be converted into higher level languages, means into set of instructions. So why do you need to perform this kind of operations? So suppose if you have any embedded system which is of high demand in the market, so then you need to know what is the particular program or how the functionality of the particular embedded system will be. So in such a case, instead of going instead of going in search of the code, we can perform this decompiling or disassembler operations, where the machine code you can acquire it from the processor ROM memory. Those machine codes you can give as an input for this disassemblers if it is an ALP program, or you can use a decompiler if you are using a higher level language program. So if you are using both of these things, you can get the machine level language to be converted into an assembly level language and the higher level language. So this is just performing a reverse engineering operations in order to get what is the actual product design, how the designing and how the functionality is done, due to which the product is in high demand in the market. So this is about disassemblers and decompilers. So along with, in order to know the working principle, along with that you can know if any of the virus is present in the particular machine level code, which tends to the different of a particular system. So even I can come to know about even that as well. So next we have simulators. Simulators are nothing but the tools which are used for simulating the circuit here. So means whatever the circuit that you are building, instead of using the components, you'll be developing the schematic of the circuit, and for given different input combinations, the circuit, according to the circuit, the input will be processed and you'll be getting the output. So the means the circuit will be developed instead of using the physical components, you'll be developing on a software tool. Means the circuit will be developed on a software tool for the different input combinations, as we are will be as the circuit will be executing in the normal physical components, it will be working in the same way on the software also. So that software tool is called as a simulator tool. So one best example is the HDL language which you have seen. So you can develop a full adder even using the normal gates as well, or even using the program as well, right? So that you'll be writing the program for that, and you'll be checking for the simulating result for different values of A, B and C. So similarly, you were writing the program here in case of simulator, but in the same case, if you download that onto FPGA, there will be an interconnections according to the program which you are going to do. Means you can generate the schematic of the full adder as well using the simulator tool, and you can check the output combinations for different input combinations using the simulator. So what is the main advantage of the simulator? So instead, the main primary factor is the cost reduction factor. If you are using the hardware components in building any circuits, and somewhere at some point of time during the designing process, if you feel that this hardware component is not the correct component which you are using, we need to go for some other component. Means whatever the cost invested on that particular component will be waste. So such kind of things can be overcome if you are using a simulator. So how can you get a simulator to a particular program which we have written? So this simulator will be part of the IDE tool itself. Okay, so IDE tool we have seen right in the last class. Keel software which you had used for your microcontroller lab is an IDE tool in which you can have a text editor to write your program, compiler to compile it, debugger to find the bugs and fix it, and you'll be having a simulator within that as well to simulate the output according to the given input things. So simulator simulates the target hardware and the firmware execution can be done in a proper way. So what are the features of the simulator? So it is purely software based. It does not require any real-time target system. Means on the PC only you can design the circuit. No need of any real-time target system. And very primitive, means everything is done in a software things. Means you can give the input also in terms of software instructions. You can get the output also in terms of waveforms or anything. So it is very primitive in nature. And the last one is lack of real-time behavior. So this is considered as main disadvantage here. Instead of considering it as a feature of simulator, along with the feature it can also be considered as a disadvantage, because in a real time embedded system the inputs will be keep on going on changing, right? So if the values are changing, the simulator will not be capable of providing a effective output for the real time input values. So for a given set of inputs, you can tell that simulator output is this. But if the input is going on changing, whatever the output that you are getting, even that also keep on varying with respect to the simulator. So the output will not be so much effective if if the simulator is used for a real-time application. So these are the advantages of simulator. No need of any original target board, means no need of any development of any particular circuit using the hardware components. Just you can use the software simulator in order to interconnect all those components and generate the output, and you can see whether it is working according to the requirements or not, according to the requirements of the circuit or not. ಈಗ ಸಪೋಸ್ ನೀವು ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ಫುಲ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್ ಡಿಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂದರೆ ಆ ಫುಲ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್ ಡಿಸೈನು ನಾವು ಇನ್ಸ್ಟೆಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಗೇಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಗೇಟ್ಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾರ್ ಗೇಟ್ directly in a simulator you'll be having all these components, just interconnecting that and you can get the output. So this is just one example with respect to HDL lab which I am giving, as I had already learnt about that particular simulator. So similarly you have many other simulator softwares for different processors and controllers as well. So no need of any hardware components, it is purely software oriented, and it is a part of the IDE tool only, so which will be residing in the CPU of the target board. Means no need of connecting the simulator as an extra component for the device. It will be as it is a part of a IDE tool. So next, as no real-time hardware is required, the cost will also be reduced. If you want to change anything, you can change it. Means the frequent changes can also be done in a proper way. We can develop a finalized system with zero cost here. So once the final system has been designed, then you can make that into a target hardware system. Means using the components. So it saves the development time as well. So next, simulate input output peripherals. So this simulator can also be used for simulating the input output peripherals. Means input output peripherals are used for getting the input data from the external hardware components and giving the output data to the external components, right? So you can simulate the input registers in the input output peripherals or input output ports or input output registers by changing the data in the simulator. Means you can edit the value of the registers during the execution time, and according to the edited value the total complete operation will be performed by the simulator. So this is about simulating input output peripherals. So the next advantage is simulate abnormal conditions. So whenever you are designing a circuit in terms of hardware components, if you are giving some input conditions which is not in a proper input range for that particular circuit, then the output will be in an undesired manner. Means you will be getting the output in an abnormal output. In some cases, due to those abnormal output, there may be chances that the hardware components may also damage. But in case of the simulator, even if the input conditions are abnormal, you can get the abnormal output conditions, but there won't be any damage with respect to the circuit here. So you can study the behavior of the software or the firmware for different abnormal input conditions as well. So what are the limitations with respect to simulator? So deviation from the real behavior, lack of real timeness. So as I already told you, lack of real timeness, since you cannot use this particular simulator in a real time application, because in case of real time application, the input parameters will be keep on changing, but the simulator may give the values at different instant. We cannot make a note that what is for which real-time input value I'm getting the output at different instants of time. So lack of real timeliness, and the other one is deviation from the real behavior. So any simulation based software debugging session, if you are taking place in a particular environment or in an IDE tool, means the developer will be able to fix the bugs here. Means he can recognize the particular thing. For this input, if I am getting a different output, then there will be a particular variation in the input parameters or variation in the circuit which has to be done. He can check and he can edit the circuit, he can test the circuit, and he can give the output for different combinations of the input using the simulator. So but that cannot be done with respect to the real-time component. Even if you are carrying out with respect to the real-time component, the cost will be high. So but with zero cost, you can get the particular thing to be done by using a simulator here. So next you have something called as emulators. So simulators are used for checking the firmware. Means it is a software tool, right? So similarly, emulator is a hardware tool which is used for checking the different components which are present in an embedded system. So for particular component, if each and every component will be having its own functionality, right? So this emulator will copy the functionality of the particular component, and it will test for the given input what will be the output I am getting. But it is a cost, it is not a cost effective system. The cost will be high because it emulates the functionality of the target device. And this whatever the emulators that you have here, that will be independent of the processor. Means it is not depending on a processor or a controller, it is independent. So it is not that we can run any type of software programs on these hardware devices in the emulator circuit, but that cannot be done in case of a simulator. So easily we can edit the circuit, we can test and we can debug it for different input combinations and for different output cycles here. The difference is that you can make the emulator maintain the circuit to look original, feel and behavior in a normal original way of the embedded system as itself. And the only thing with respect to emulator is the cost of this emulator is high, and if you want to design an emulator, it takes more amount of time. So instead of going for emulator, it is better to design our original system only. So difference between simulator and emulator. Simulator is a software application where emulator is used for checking the hardware components here. Next, simulator is a part of IDE tool. Emulator will be residing in the CPU, but it won't be a part of IDE tool. Okay, it means emulator will act as an interface between the application in which it is running and the PC on which it has been residing. So this is the difference between a simulator as well as an emulator here. So next we have debuggers. So debuggers are the tools which are used for debugging the code. So while you'll be writing a set of code, so each and every code can be, means after this step, what is the output? If you have a code of 10, if you have a program of 10 codes within it, the debugging can be done all at once, or step by step debugging can also be done, or step into step out. All the four different kinds of debugging operation can be done with respect to software. So with respect to debugger, you have two different types. One is hardware debugging, which will be monitoring the various components and the bus signals of the target hardware, and the firmware debugging, which will be testing the particular program execution and the status of the registers and CPU registers and the normal ROM registers in case of this firmware debugging. So these are the two different types of debugging. So with respect to software, these are the different types of techniques which are followed for firmware debugging. They may ask you explain the different debugging techniques. So these are the different techniques. You have incremental EEPROM burning technique, inline breakpoint based firmware technique, ICE, OCD, and MPB firmware debugging technique. So the first one we'll see incremental EEPROM burning technique. Suppose if you have a code, the complete code will be separated into different functions, and every function, that particular function will be burned into the ROM, and it will be the functionality of that particular function will be checked. For this input, I'm getting the output, whether the obtained output is correct or not. So similarly, once the particular code for the given code, if you are getting the output, you'll dump the next part of the code. So similarly, then each and every part of the code will be dumped separately, and it will be checked thoroughly for each and every input combinations. So it is not that here performing the complete debugging operation here, means you are checking the functionality of the total program with a different set of code size here. So this particular technique is used in product development where time is not a big constraint. So means it cannot be used in a real time applications only. So it is also very useful in product development environments where no other debugging tools are available. So if no debugging tools are available, you can cut the complete code into different functions, and each and every functions can be debugged separately for different input combinations. So this is about this. So next you have inline breakpoint based firmware debugging. Means suppose if you have a program of 10 instructions, I need to see what is the output after the execution of fourth instruction. In such case, I can use this inline breakpoint. Means if I put a breakpoint at the fourth instruction within the 10 line code, the execution will be taking place only until that fourth instruction, and the status of the registers will also be updated only until that fourth instruction. So you can apply how many are the breakpoints at different instructions, and you can check the status of the registers or variables by using this printf operation. Okay, so this is just one example in order to get the status at after each and every point by using this inline breakpoint firmware debugging process. Here the source code is cross compiled along with the debugging codes which are within it. So there will be a hex file with respect to each and every code, and that hex file will be dumped into the ROM memory here. So next you have monitor based program based firmware debugging. So this will be the superior firmware debugging process, and this is the most adoptive method by many of the embedded systems here. So what you are going to do by monitor program based firmware in the sense where if you have this if the application is following this particular debugging process, the user will be having a note of what are the registers that are modified, what are the memory locations that are modified, and which until what point the source code has been executed. Each and every point in this particular debugging process we can come to know. So what are the things that are downloaded, what is the status of the memory registers or modifications that we are done in the code. All these things will be monitored by this particular monitor program based firmware debugging. So if you want to send the information to the external device through this firmware debugging, you can use all these interfaces, serial interfaces here, and you need to run this monitor program at the other end in order to make this firmware execution process to run between two systems. So that is called as monitor program, and it will be stored in the ROM only, and that program which is stored, it is called as a monitor ROM. So it can be stored in EEPROM or it can also be stored in a flash ROM. or a flash memory. So see here, so this is the debugging application which we have. So here you are going to monitor this particular board using this RS-232. Means this debugging software is in this. Whereas using this particular serial link, you can know what is the things that are going on within this particular system that you have developed. You will be having a note of different locations or the registers that are accessed and what are the things that are downloaded. Each and everything can be noted by this particular debugging application through this serial communication links. So next we have ICE. So ICE is nothing but in-circuit emulator. So suppose whatever the hardware device you have, means emulator, as you know, emulator is a hardware device which we will be using it for checking the different hardware components of the circuit, right? In-circuit emulator, in the sense the emulator will be residing inside the system itself. So residing within the processor, it performs many operations as well. Firmware execution, we can set the breakpoints, we can get the status of the different registers of RAM and ROM and CPU registers, all those things. So but means all you have some softwares also which will perform the functionality of the hardware components, which, and those are also called as emulators itself. But those emulators which are working with respect to software applications are called as software emulators. One example is emulating an application of a phone of different application on our system. Means if you want to run any applications, any different applications on our system, then you can use this software emulators. See here, using this ICE, you can interface that with the target board and you can emulate all these different components here. But this IC is a part of this board itself. But it is pictorially it has been shown as separately. But this IC is a part of this target board. Using this device, means the whatever the computer, I can debug all the components which are present on the computer, the target board, using this inbuilt IC. So next we have on-chip firmware debugging. So on-chip, in the sense, this firmware debugging component will be designed on the on-chip itself. So now many of the processors and the controllers are having this OCD within this. But the thing, as it is inbuilt, more amount of silicon will be used and the circuit will also be complex. So the cost factor will also be high. But it is a good feature, as no need of connecting it externally. So you have some of the software debugging support, or some vendors need. Some vendors uses this OCD as an add-on chip, add-on component by interfacing that through a JTAG, or they can also use for background debugging mode in order to debug the firmware at the background operation. So if you want to debug the different hardware, means the different components of the different components in the hardware, then these are the different debugging tools which we are using for checking the functionality of the different hardware components. The first one is magnifying glass, multimeter, digital CRO, logic analyzer, functional generator. So first we'll be seeing the magnifying glass. So see here, this is the pictorial representation where whatever the IC that you are designing, or whatever the PCB board on which the embedded system that you are designing, you can check each and every component, where the visual of the each and every component can be in a better way by using this magnifying glasses. Okay, so you can solve the problems as a dry soldering of the components. If any component is missing, or if any particular component is misplaced, instead of one place, if it is misplaced in the other place, or if the soldering is not proper, if any damage is there on the board, all those things you can keep a track if you are using this magnifying glass, because each and every part of the PCB board can be viewed in a much visual representation. So this is about the magnifying glass. So next you have multimeter. So multimeters, each and every component you can check the status of that. For the given input, what is the output that you are getting, you can check that. Means with respect to multimeter, you can check the what is the output current or output voltage that you are getting, or what is the resistance that is offered by the component, the capacitance, continuity checking also. If you have a connection between 2 points, so if you have, this is the connection point A, and if you have, this is the point B. So suppose a wire has been attached from point A to point B. So suppose if you want to check whether this line has been attached from A to B, then you can use this positive and negative terminals with respect to this A and B terminal. If there is continuity, there will be a sound which will be generated by this multimeters. So it can also be used as a primary debugging tool for checking the physical contacts between the different hardware components here. So next, for checking the continuity at different points and for measuring the voltage, signal value, polarity, all those things. This multimeter is of two types which you have here. One is the digital one, which will and the analog one. In most of the applications, they'll be using the digital one because all the parameters will be displayed on this LCD, so that you can get the direct value. But here in case of analog, you need to calculate depending upon this indicator line which you have here. So in many of the applications, they'll be using this digital multimeter only in order to check the different components. So next you have CRO. So CRO is used for displaying the uh, means waveforms, or analyzing the signals, or what is the strength of the signals. If you want to measure any signal, then all those things will be done by this CRO. Even the CRO is of two types. You have analog CRO and the digital CROs. Analog CROs is much more complex, and you need, means the end user need to perform many operations to get the values. But in case of digital versions, all the values, means peak value, frequency value, everything will be mentioned here at the side. So no, by seeing that, you can come to know the different parameters of the particular signal. So many of the applications or many of the designers will be using this digital CROs for measuring the means for checking the particular components output. And in this digital CROs, you'll be having more than one channel. As you can see here, you'll be having 3 channels. You can use any of these 3 channels to get the output here. So this modern CROs is having more than one channel, but previously used to have 1 or 2 channels for a particular CRO. So this can be used for measuring the phase of the signal, amplitude of the signal, frequency of the signal, each and every parameter of the signal. You can get it from this digital CRO. So next you have logic analyzer. So this logic analyzer is used for getting the output with respect to your digital circuit. Usually the digital circuit will be, output will be in terms of ones and zeros, right? So in order to get the proper output waveform for a digital circuit, you can use this logic analyzer window. Even for this digital circuits, you can use the CRO as well. Along with CRO, you can use it for, you can use even this logic analyzer uh, component as well. So this, what does this logic analyzer contains? It contains special connectors and clips which will be attached to the target board terminals in order to capture the different data values. Either the value is 1 or 0. In order to get those things, you can use this logic analyzers. So this is about the logic analyzer. So if you want, if you have an embedded system and if you have a digital circuit here, and if I want to check the status of the digital circuit, means if I want to debug this particular digital circuit, I can use this logic analyzer where the ports, using these ports, I can connect to this circuit and I can get the verified output here. Means for the given input, whether I'm getting the output, means whether the circuit is working in a proper way or not. So that can be analyzed by using this particular component. So next you have a function generator. So function generator is not a debugging tool. So this function generator is used for giving the input signals. So for any component, if you want any input signal from this particular function generator, you can give the input to the different components. So the input can be in terms of sine wave, square wave, or sawtooth wave. and you can vary the frequency of all these waveforms as well as the amplitude. And some of the systems may require periodic waveforms or non-periodic waveforms. Even those things can be selected by using this function generator. So you need to understand that this function generator component is just, and you can be used as an input signal simulator tool. So in order to debug any particular component, you can give the input signal from this function generator to the component, and you can see the output. If you want the output to be viewed in a CRO, you can view that, or else if you want logic analyzer, you can view in that, or else you want multimeter to check the status of the particular output, you can check all those things. So next we have the last one, boundary scan. So this boundary scan is a technique which is used for testing the interconnections among the different chips. So usually the chips within a system, if you have more than one chip, means the chip is nothing but not the system core. It can be anything which is in the form of IC. Okay. So if you have any IC or any chip, if those things has to be interconnected to send the information, you can use the JTAG. Yeah, you can use JTAG or you can use communication interfaces for transferring the information. In order to check the interconnection between those two components, you are going to use this boundary scan technique. And this is widely used as a debugging method to check the status of interconnections within the IC itself. And it can also be used for measuring the voltage and how the blocks has been placed within the IC, whether there is any interlink between the blocks or there is any discharge of current within the IC. All those things can be done. So it adds a boundary scan cell which will be having a what will be inside a multi boundary scan is that it includes a set of multiplexers, latches with respect to each and every device. So these are the benefits of this particular boundary scan. It is low test generator cost, reduce the test time, reduce time to market, simpler and less costly testers, compatibility with the tester interfaces, high density package device accommodation. So these are the different areas where you can find the boundary scan testing due to these advantages. So you have boundary scan description language, that is BSDL, which is used for testing the components which are connected through JTAG. And this BSDL is a component of HDL, means this is designed by using the HDL itself, which describes the JTAG implementation in a device. So these are the different target hardware debugging things which you can use with respect to this. So by this we'll complete 5th module. So if anyone of you have any doubts, you can ask me. Any doubts you can ask me, just raise your hand.